covered if you got to run too. So
cool beans.
No, you got to do it early. Not your fault. That we're
All
having
right, ladies, let me stick y'all in here. Sorry, I was stealing a picture off of another banner a minute ago. All right, here we go. Pop up, pop up, pop up. All right, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and you're live.
Hi, and if you're just joining us, welcome. You're listening to The Angel Rock. I'm your host, Laura Lee Potvin. Just a little bit about me. I'm being broadcast out of Canada. I want to thank our producer and station owner, Joe Montaldo. He always makes my job look so easy. He does all the hard work for me behind the scenes. I'm a psychic medium. I'm also a crystal Reiki energy healer. I'm an Akashic Records practitioner. I can't talk to me. Practitioner, as well as a spiritual teacher and mentor. I'm also a registered nurse. We have excuse me. So I'm sorry. We'll explain that in a minute. Why I had to get interrupted in my flow. Anyways, I have a really special guest for you, but I do want to welcome you. If you're just new to the Angel Rock, welcome. If you're listening on www.uprntalkradio.com, please feel free to join us on YouTube, on UPRN's channel there. I always keep an eye on the stream. You'll be able to watch the show. I'm live on video, as well as we have an interactive live chat room. I also take phone calls, so if that's something you want to do, you can certainly type that in the chat and we'll make that happen. We had Zach last week join us. He had some great questions. And for our guest tonight, she's a friend of mine, fellow radio host here on UPRN, but I also know her from previous radio experience. She's an absolute doll. She's an author. Gosh, I was checking out her bio and just even the amount of work she's done. She does cartoon work. She's an author. I know she's been on TV before. She's got this very popular radio show here called The Outlander. She is an expert on Shadow Man, the Hat Man. I could go on, but I want to welcome her, Heidi Hollis. Welcome, Heidi.
Thank you so much, Laura Lee. How are you doing tonight?
I'm great. I want to let our listeners know, and this is not Heidi's fault in any way. She's so popular. She's going to have to duck out of here a little early tonight. That's what the interruption was. The Dell was on the hour before, as he's mentioned probably before, and I have. He's my hubby or partner in crime as well. I live with him. So he may even join us for that last hour too. But we're going to get into all kinds of things tonight, Heidi. So what have you been up to? I know you moved states. So how's that going with you?
Well, I just came over to the California state. I'm originally from the San Francisco area, and but I was raised in the Midwest. Yeah, So raised in the Midwest, and I have been wanting to get back over to the West Coast for the longest time. I finally had some good excuses too, because I was working on several projects, and am now VP of production for a company too. So
right.
It's been a great time actually, but my goodness, there's so much pain and agony going on in regards to this outbreak right now, and California is really active with it. So it's a bit scary right now.
Well,
all of Hollywood is shut down, by the way. So it's just
that's what I had heard, because we watch quite a bit of YouTube, favorite YouTubers or things like that, and a lot are actually in LA, and they've been talking about being completely shut down, right? Like everything's closed up pretty well. It's essential.
Yes. Yeah, it really is. Everything is shut down, and essentially they are asking for paperwork if you are going to your job, and if they pull you over, you could get a misdemeanor fine, charges or jail time if you're just out lollygagging or whatever. It's like, wow, what on earth is going on here? So yeah, it's really scary. So it's just essential jobs are being allowed to be open. I was surprised that laundromats and dry cleaners was in that, but yep.
So
that's interesting. They're open. So the ones that are opened, they're open. So like restaurants, you can't go dining, but they can deliver. Chicago, where I just moved from, I heard that Chicago that you can dine, but it would have to be outside. I don't get that. On the sidewalk, it's too cold. I mean, who would want to do that?
Yeah. Mind you, I don't know what Chicago's winter's been like, but here in Northern Ontario, we've had one of the warmest, beautifulest winters we ever could have had. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was pretty mild. They had some very mild. They said, Heidi, you moved away too soon. We're going to have California weather soon.
I bet.
Yeah.
Well, I was out in a hoodie today. Like, that's unheard of in Thunder Bay. It's right on the lakes or the shore of North, I can't even talk, Lake Superior. And we're about 35 minutes north of the Minnesota border. So normally it's like bitter cold here still, and snow, everything's melting. It's crazy.
Oh, wow. Yeah, it's nuts. I'm like, wow, this is so some prime real estate's in the frozen tundra of Wisconsin, for all I know now. It's like
Well,
no longer frozen.
Well, I was talking to my moderator that I have for one of my groups, Paranormal University, and she's been on hiatus, and she's actually in Sardinia. And so she's been, giving me all these updates via voice messaging and vice versa. But believe it or not, Ontario is completely shut down as of today. I think by midnight, everything except for essential services as well. The restaurants, everything has been closed forever. But the thing is, I don't know if you're seeing this or not. And then I got a question for you, but I want to ask you that I hope is related to this. But we don't have any food. Are like almost shut down. Like, my oldest son just moved to Port Francis, which is on the border, and International Falls, and there's nothing either.
Yeah. I had a friend who's about an hour and a half outside of Los Angeles, and I could just hear the being stunned in her voice. Like, it's showing a video of inside the grocery store, and it wasn't just toilet paper. Like, there was no food. And I was just like, oh my gosh, if you need me to do a run and bring food down there to you, let me know. I'm in an area that I think they have an overabundance of grocery stores over here. And it's like, we're pretty good for food, but toiletries, toilet paper,
same.
That's totally just gone. Yeah, that's gone. I mean, people just lost their minds when it came to that.
I hear you. Yeah, we have nothing, not even in the dollar stores. No aloe vera, the gel that you can make hand sanitizer, no rubbing alcohol, no toilet paper, no supplies to clean with whatsoever that would be sanitizing in any way. But my son messaged me, and he's actually closer to Winnipeg, Manitoba, which the things for our food usually comes, if it's going to come from Canada, out west. And come up from southern Ontario, and we're not like in the middle of the Arctic, but we're one of the biggest cities, and we're actually right in the middle of Canada. Nothing was there, and the only reason I got up that early, I have a back injury, and I have a cane. So they were supposed to open the stores early for people that either were elderly or if you had some kind of issue or disability. Nothing was open because I didn't go to bed Friday night, and I was really lucky to get what I got because I thought I was going to have to FedEx stuff to my son because they didn't have enough food till Monday.
Oh my gosh, it's really horrifying. It's like, my God, what's going on right now? And it's a hoarding mentality that people picked up on because it worked fine before this system. What gives now? It's people are like, well, I don't want to have to go back out to the grocery store. It's like, well, what about your neighbor that didn't get here when it's like all for themselves. It's ridiculous. And I'd seen videos of people, just insane amounts of things, just insane. Like, that makes no sense. So
limited here.
Scary times.
Everything is limited. You're only allowed one of something or maybe 2 pounds of a hamburger. Like, everything is limited here. You cannot hoard even once.
Wow. Well, that's a good thing. But I mean, when our little reserves run out, I mean, desperate people do desperate things, and
9 meals away from it.
I tell people, it's like I think people are going to get really desperate really quick and start panicking like stuff out of the movies really soon. I mean, if people are like, wow, I just don't understand crime, and there's certain neighborhoods you don't go into. I'm like, and I always say, desperate people do desperate things. I'm like, put yourself in their shoes, and you see somebody going by while you're starving, and they're just having a good old time with something. I mean, you get desperate. So, and I wouldn't put much past people to do some awful things to each other if this doesn't get handled better.
I agree, because my concern is my youngest son has severe autism and only eats 6 foods. That's the person I'm concerned about, is getting food for him. From your professional life that somebody with autism, you hear people say, well, they'll eat when they get hungry enough. No, they won't.
Right.
I have this excuse me while I stretch my leg out. They've had many people I know have had small children, especially have had feeding tubes put in. So I'm a little concerned about what we're going to do, but we'll cross that bridge when we get to it.
Yeah.
But I have something for you I read. I believe it was on your feed, and you were talking about that you believe the Shadow Man and the Hat Man, there's going to be a more increased presence of these two entities. I'd love to hear your theories on this, share this with our listeners about why you believe this. And for those of you, I don't think there's anybody that knows of the Shadow Man, the Hat Man, does not know of you, Heidi. But I consider you the world's expert basically on it. And I know a lot of people do. So what gives you this idea that you believe, and I believe you, that there's going to be an increase?
Yeah. A lot of people, believe it or not, they don't know there was a beginning to the information being told and distributed about shadow people and the Hat Man phenomena. And it was me. It was a single lady going out there hitting the streets and the pavement saying, "Oh my God, look out, what's coming. Look, this is coming." So it's been a long journey. It's been over 20 years. I wrote my book in 1997 called The Secret War, based on shadow people and the relation to negative alien beings. So it's a story in itself. But yeah, right now, when you think about
this, because I don't usually, I talk about some paranormal stuff, and I would like for you to share, because I'm sure there are whatever you feel drawn to or feel where you want to go with this story, please do, because I know my listeners are going to love it. Well, you have a paranormal group. I get so many questions about this. So,
yeah. Oh, well, when it comes to the topic of the coronavirus and what's happening around the world right now, I mean, when you think about it, I mean, just negativity hits you. It hits you in every safe place that you ever had in your mind, and it scares people to death to think, oh my God, it's a roll of the dice who's going to survive and who isn't. In all honesty. So knowing how negative this is and how it's depressing people, suppressing people, it's isolating people, it's making people ill, it's making them weak, it's killing them. It's easy to know that negative things are going to take advantage of us during this time of weakness. So while we're desperately trying to preserve the physical, they're totally going after the non-physical. They're going to be going after your soul, because that's what they do. That's their whole mission. And it's been, how can I say, it's been this presence that I felt it was building up, and knowing the patterns, knowing that they evoke and create negativity themselves. They could create illness, they can create depression, they can create these things. And here this thing is going free willy-nilly all over the place. I mean, this is just easy pickings for them. And I know while everybody's guard is down and paying attention to preserving their lives, that we're really going to be we're going to be so vulnerable. And I know Hat Man, his number one thing, he loves reaping souls, literally grabbing, punching his fist through people's chests and taking them.
You've had that experience yourself, had you not? I remember when I've had you on a show previous, before you had something like that happen, didn't you?
I didn't have him try to reach into my chest, thank God.
No, but didn't he? I'm positive there was something like that. Go ahead, maybe I'm wrong. I'd love to hear, but I know you've had some physical encounters with them.
Well, yeah. So, but with this going on now, this presence with this darkness and stuff that's going on around the world and in the form of this coronavirus and ripping people down, there's been another presence that's making itself known. And I like to feed into the positive more than the negative, because there's enough of that going on right now. And the fear, we're feeding this thing, we're feeding this negative crap, and we can't help it. We're in new territory with this virus. But I started personally experiencing things that were so out of the norm. I don't know if you'd seen the article that was written on myself in December by New York Times Psychology Today journalist. Her name is Maureen Seberg, and she writes on synesthesia. Personally, I've never heard of synesthesia. It's just never had. And I'm like, apparently it's like your senses taking everything to another level. So like when you hear music, you get goosebumps. Well, there's actually no connection there between your ears and your goosebumps, but we have that. So it's like when you see a number, you actually might mentally see a color associated with the number. So it's kind of a weird association that has been scientifically proven by neurologists that we have this ability, and it's an extrasensory perception that it's just like groundbreaking. So she interviewed me for weeks, okay, asking me all sorts of questions, and
Right.
I didn't know exactly where she was going with it, but she's like, well, I've discovered you have mirror touch synesthesia, where I could feel the pain of other people, like very empathetic, very empathic,
Yes.
that type. So I'm like, okay, yes, I feel that. She said, but I also think you're one of the 5 people I found in the world that's a machine empath. I didn't know that was such a thing.
No,
She said,
I want to hear more.
yeah. So, when it comes to inanimate objects or electronics, a lot of people that are into these odd sciences, ufology, paranormal, we experience strange anomalies when it comes to electronics, where, we might zap things or whatever. And it's like, I've always had that. My dad was a computer engineer, and thank God he was, because I blew up every computer, sometimes a couple of times a week, and he had to keep fixing them. And I'm like, Dad, why does this keep happening? And he's like, there's just some people who this happens to. He's like, it's a known pattern. I'm like, oh, okay. But I couldn't get things done when I needed to because this kept happening. So I started reaching back out to these things, kind of like when you let a dog sniff your hand to see if it's okay to pet it. So I was like, okay, I'm obviously something around me. My energy level is not right. It's not calm. I have to figure this out because I really need to get my homework assignments done. And I'm like,
stop clocks? Do you stop clocks and watches if you wear them?
Do I what?
Like if you wear a watch, do you stop a watch?
I haven't had that so much. What they're doing to me, though, electronics, goofing up. I mean, the graphics going haywire. It's just not typical stuff. But so the interesting part, so I didn't know this was so rare. She writes about this, and I'm like, rise of the machines. It's like, oh my God, being able, she said, you're the first that I know that pushes back at the machines, though. She's like, usually these other synesthetes, these people that are sensitive to this, they can feel the machine, they can feel the inanimate object a certain way. And I'm like, oh, that's fascinating. And she's like, but you're feeling it and you're saying, no, do this. And I'm like, oh, okay. So it's just really different. So I'm ever since, these conversations that I had with her and her putting this article out, I started experiencing even more. I'm like, oh my God, it's been through the roof. And I'm like, what is going on here? People I'm talking to on the phone. I mean, just for an example, I was talking to my sister about some odd things that I felt that she should know in regards to how this is different. Okay, I haven't brought this up myself independently, so I'm bringing it up on your show.
I'm glad.
But I have these peculiar holes in my wrists. Okay, and they go through the lunate bone. And being an occupational therapist, I'm like, okay, I know bone cysts, but gosh, it is weird to just have one in each wrist in the exact same spot.
I know that too.
I was like, this is really bizarre. So I had, I'd mentioned it to this journalist. She looks into it. And lo and behold, the lunate bone is where they suspect the crucifixion nails were put.
That's what that made me think of right away as soon as she said that.
Yeah. And I was like, well, holy cannoli, I would have never guessed, so she mentioned it on Coast to Coast. I did a show with her on Coast to Coast. She's like, it's like an internal stigmata. Like, oh, okay.
You're reading my mind. I don't know if I'm reading yours or you're reading mine, because that's exactly what I was just thinking, Heidi. Oh my God.
It's really different. And I Googled it. There's only 3 that's been reported in the world. I'm like, come on now. What on earth? So I don't know. It's different. But And I guess it's odd too I mean, I have the encounters with Jesus, and I have tackled these spiritual warfare with these shadow people and Hatman forever, but so it is kind of, it's kind of odd, and I'm just like, it's so strange to look at something like that physical on myself when I'm like, I'm Christian, I'm busy, I have things to do, I'm like, it's like, so it's just odd.
Well,
but,
I know
okay,
you
so
personally too, and I know you're not like religious or anything, and you're just so easy going about stuff. It's just like, okay, one more thing to add to the list.
It's just, I mean, I'm Christian. I hold tight to that, but I'm not a Bible thumping, you're going to hell, type of person, But so I was talking to my sister about this, okay? And I'm like, oh gosh, I better tell my sister I've got these holes in my wrist before like this stuff gets out there. She's gonna like, why didn't you say something? So I'm talking to her, and I didn't even get to tell her. And she's in front of her computer, and this is just an example of some of the odd things that's been going on. And her screen on her computer goes white. Mm-hmm. And big bold letters go across the screen. Only God is eternal. And then another set of, this is a bizarre second sentence. I miss my mom. I don't understand that. And then she said her screen just like went back to normal, like nothing ever happened. She's like, what was that? I'm like, mm-hmm. And then it was just the strangest thing. And she was so freaked out. She said, Heidi, I gotta go. I'll call you back. She did not call me back. I didn't even get to tell her. But it was just so much that had happened. Everybody I spoke to, their phones acted up. They were able to document it, taking screenshots. My phone was doing stuff. And computers and other things, inanimate objects, just the nuttiest thing. But then, Lori Lee, this happened, and it blew my mind. I'm like, okay, something is around me. It's trying to get my attention. The coronavirus is going crazy. I'm worried about demons going after people. Yeah. And I was stepping over my shoe. My hands were full. I'm like, I just, can't fall. I was like, I don't want to step on this shoe. And it moved out of the way. And I was like, okay, now.
Okay, so are you developing telekinesis? I got to ask you, is that what you're feeling? Because you were thinking, I don't want to step on the shoe, and it moved.
Oh, I didn't think about that, to be honest. It feels like a protective force that's around, and I'm finding with darkness around, of course the more positive side is going to rise up and try to defend us, know? And it's like, I'd rather feed into the positive than this negative thing that's spiraling out of control with these shadow beings, these demons all over the globe. I mean, it's out of control. It really is. And I'm like, of course angels would protect. Of course God would be paying attention. For me to fall would have been really just catastrophic for me. For reasons that I don't advertise too much, but Lori knows.
I know.
Yes,
talked about this. I know. Yeah.
Yes, it would have been horrific for me, and it's like, oh my goodness. And I mean, things that I would just talk about. Okay, Lori Lee, here's another one. This is crazy. So here where I live, there's a pool out back, and there's a pool cleaner on in the bottom, and it always falls in a certain spot on its side, and it stays there all day long. It's just stuck, and I'm like. And I was joking with my friend doing talk to text, right? So I have my cell phone out, and I'm talking at it, so it texts her. I'm like, you ever see that scene in the movie Paranormal Activity where the pool cleaner goes up the side of the wall? And I'm just like joking with her, and she's like, no, I didn't see that. I'm like, I was just thinking about it because I'm just looking at this thing. So I turn my head. Next thing I hear is all over the place. The dang thing went up the side of the wall and sprayed water all over the place. And I was like, oh my God. I took a picture of the water it sprayed out. I'm like,
I would have, yes.
I think this just didn't happen. This just did not happen. So it's been really like, hello, Heidi, we're here. I'm like, I mean, I didn't think of telekinesis, but it's like I don't know what on earth is going on, but whatever it is, it's like waving and it's like, I'm here. And I feel like, I feel like our guardian angels are around us though, too, at this time, because it's like, and demonic things can't read your mind, but the good side, angels can. So don't speak it out loud. Think the positive thoughts and feed your guardian angels versus, hey, guardian angel, are you here? Well, this is what I'm thinking, because something dark could hear it and try to mimic or that thing.
I believe that as well. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I want to tell you, Crab Lopez is here and wants to let you know their words were, love you, Heidi. And I want to give a shout out to Zach, man. He's here too. So thanks for tuning in, guys.
That's cool.
Well, Crab Lopez knows it's Heidi Hollis. Zach, it's Heidi Hollis. She's just here for a little bit over the hour because she's a popular girl tonight. It wasn't her fault.
Yes.
And she's so interesting. I had her when we were on our previous place that we had shows, and I've had some great shows with you because you've got the best stories. I have to tell you though about inanimate objects. I'm taking my advanced Akashic Records practitioner's course right now. Everything has an Akashic record. It doesn't matter whether it's an inanimate object, a building, a place, anything. Part of what we're learning. I'm a bit behind because I was moving and stuff, so I'm getting caught up. But like say with animals have free will. Like you can't just go and impose your will, say, on certain things. There's ways to communicate. Even with the building, asking its permission, say before, say you wanted to knock it down. I'm just pulling things out of the air. So I could see it working vice versa with humans as well. Like it's a very rare gift that you have. But I love what you're bringing forward about that you're getting many signs from the positive, because the one thing I do want to share, I know you know Agnost. He has a group called the Mastermind Connection that meets every Sunday. And right now, his co-host, Nori Love, she's been sharing it, so I feel comfortable sharing this out loud, but she was very ill in the hospital, and she said GI problems her whole life. And she's a nurse too, but she's been off with her. And something the nurse apparently was really awful to her. I don't know how they could be. She's such a sweetheart. But she was really ill and didn't think she was going to get out of the hospital. She literally says that she was basically taken by the Pleiadians and healed. Like taken, she doesn't even really remember what happened. As soon as she came back, all the stomach pain was gone, everything like that. So that's who we've been working with the Mastermind Connecting. And they're definitely making their presence known, and they're here for humanity, right? They look like us, they're loving. And so I do believe exactly what you said. Even though you may see something dark, I always say to people, we always have, whether you want to call it your guides, angels, spirit, whatever, we have helpers on this journey in life. We're not alone. Right. So you've said I 100% with. Yeah. So what else have you been finding has been going on? Have you got any, besides that, are you even going to be able to top those signs? Like I'm still puzzled by that sign on your, those words on your sister's computer. I miss my mom.
Yeah.
Wow.
Only God is eternal. Interrupts our conversation. We're sitting there talking. Yeah. And she's like, what am I seeing? And she's like, she's like, I miss my mom. She's like, what is this? What is this? I'm like, what's going on? And I can't tell you how many conversations I've had like that where people are freaking out on the other end going, oh my God, what's my phone? What is it doing? Just the craziest stuff. And it is just through the roof. And, I'm like, I was trying for the longest time, trying to explain and find a reasoning behind it. I'm like, of course, these beings are letting us know that they're here.
I believe
they're protective. Yeah. So I'm just, I'm kind of relying upon that and wanting people to feed into the positive in regards to that, because it is so very important during this difficult time, because, the power of prayer is immense. And I'll tell you, just yesterday, I wasn't feeling that great. I was like, oh no, my throat was sore for a couple of days. And I run cold. I'm like 97.7 or so is my temperature. And I started, like, all of a sudden I felt really hot. I had to do a radio show as a guest yesterday, and your friends, your friends.
Yeah, my friends. Yeah. been on here before. Yeah, Damien Gray and Ralph Terlucci.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. And I get off and I'm like, oh no, I feel hot. And I take my temperature. I'm like 99.0. That's hot for me.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh no. I'm like, this just can't be happening. And I tell my friend, I said, I got a temperature and a sore throat. This is really not good. She goes, oh no, this is not happening. And I am not kidding you. She said, I'm going to pray for you right now. She's a very powerful, I don't even know how to categorize her. She's very powerful. Let's put it that way. An empath. And all of a sudden, like 3 minutes into it, she prayed for me. Just like going about my business. And I feel coolness on the back of my neck.
Wow.
And I'm like, I feel cooler. What on earth? I checked my temperature. It's gone down several points. And I'm like, what on earth? And within 10 minutes, I dropped below my normal temperature. I was like 97.3. I was like, what?
You were really cool.
I was like, back up. I said, did you just pray for me? Could you slow your roll? I'm like, I'm going to be an icicle. It hasn't returned.
Wow.
The power of prayer is something else. And I'm like, fortunate to have really cool friends. But man, you pray for miracles and miracles happen. You just have to really believe, the faith of a mustard seed can move a mountain, as Jesus said,
Yeah, but you know what? That's kind of this principle behind the mastermind, a little bit about what I teach. I always say to people, and having a science background, I usually have to have some sort of semblance of science, but everything is energy on this planet. People just not realize the power of their words, their thoughts, and their emotions. And including with the mastermind, the reason how Augie started this was he said, if you have 10 people, you have the brain power of 100. And I remember talking to him privately about this, going, how are you getting to 100? He goes, because if every person talked to every single person 10 times 10, you end up with 100. And he's saying exactly what you're saying, whether it's prayer, whether it's intention, no matter what it is, the more brain power, energy you put into it, the more powerful it is. He's even got a couple of cases, and people, of course, are always naysayers. There was a girl that was a friend of his, it was a friend of his daughter, and he called him before Christmas and said, I've got some really sad news. He said, my daughter's been diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer. Oh. And he was, this girl apparently was just covered in tumors, hadn't even had treatment. They just sent her home. Palliative said, go get your affairs in order. You haven't got much time left. And I guess Augie got this group together, and he's growing it now. Like, he was on here a couple of weeks ago, and they got together. They talked to her about diet, talked to her about visualization, because the more base the body is, basic rather than acidic, that helps as well. And they worked on this mastermind. And of course, there was some work she had to do on her part. Well, 2 months later, I kid you not, she went to the doctor. She didn't have a tumor in sight. The doctor asked her what she was doing, that this was a miracle. And apparently when she told him, he walked out of the room. He wouldn't believe her. Yeah.
Beautiful, though. Hey. I've heard such things, be in the medical field. These doctors hate when they're wrong. Oh, they hate when they're wrong. They really do. Yeah. I have had such cockiness. I want to reach out and choke them down.
Yeah, I've been there.
Oh, yeah. Man. I had a doctor that refused to take off that I had a brain tumor because he was right. Oh, no. A year of me going coast to coast about this rare brain tumor, and we got to sacrifice your nerves. They like to use different words, so you don't know what the heck they mean. Sacrifice, what does that mean? Oh, they're gonna hack it out. That's what that means. And I'm like,
put it back.
I told him, I said, you know what I told him? I said, unless there's a volcano here in front of us, we're not sacrificing anything.
Good.
He looked at me like I was nuts. Oh man, but yeah, refused. I had to get another doctor to take it off my chart. I'm like, I don't have a brain tumor. You were all wrong. 13 doctors later, mind you. Johns Hopkins, Mayo Clinic. I went to all of the top ones.
Thought they were wrong. I'm going to tell you, I got to listen back to this broadcast because I don't know if you've heard it. I've heard all kinds of little strange things coming through. Even before you told me that story, I noticed.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, what are you hearing? You're hearing voices over the line?
Yeah, like a male voice. Nothing, I don't pick up like anything, negative or untoward. It's just, I noticed that there was a few little things, and then you told this story and I went, that makes sense. Okay.
You know what? Oh my
Mhm.
God, Lori Lee, you're giving me goosebumps. This has been an ongoing thing with this voice. There's voices around me that are telling people things, and it's come over the phone, it's come in person, and it's usually a guy's voice, but it
Mhm.
sounds different to different people. So I've had them go over my show. I've
Mhm.
had EVPs, but one was just, oh my God, imagine this. I was talking to a TV show producer,
Mhm.
and I had like an hour conversation with her, hang up, and then she texts me. She's like, look, I don't know what to tell you, but I was hearing another voice while I was talking to you. I was like, what?
Mhm.
And she's like, he was trying to say something. She's like, let me call you right back. So she calls me back. And
Yeah.
while she's explaining this to me, he starts talking outright to her.
Wow.
And telling her things there's no way she would know. No way. Very specific. I had talked earlier in the day with this gentleman about going hiking in the mountains.
Mhm.
And and she's like, what? He's telling me, no, don't go. She's like, over and over, no, don't go. And then she's like, he's saying she's going with two ladies and a guy, and they're hiking ahead of you. You get tired, you sit down. I mean, this whole conversation, you sit down, and she gets quiet. She goes,
Mhm.
something grabs you. I said, something grabs me. And I said, just say it. She goes, I don't want to say it. I said, go ahead, say it. She said, an effing Bigfoot grabs you, okay?
I knew you were gonna do that.
I said, well, there goes my change of plans. I am not going
I'm
hiking.
not going.
I thought she was going to say, oh, these people do something horrible to you. But no, it was a freaking Bigfoot.
I knew you were going to say it. I knew it. You know,
Oh,
the more
man.
you're saying this, I have to share this with you. And I may have
Yeah.
said it on this show before, I don't know.
Mhm.
Ever since I have started with this Akasha Records course, the
Mhm.
courses I've taken, it used to be when I was working actively as a nurse, someone would pop into my head without doubt,
Mhm.
and happens to work in this field, you'd see their name in the obituary, either that
Yeah.
day, a week later, whatever. I did not want that gift at all. But what's
Uh-huh.
been happening since? Somebody will pop into my head. Somebody I don't even really know that well. Maybe I haven't talked to them in 12 years. Without fail, I think we're up to number 243. I've been counting in the past 6 months.
Mhm.
The person will contact me. They will message me. They will, for example, a friend of Dell's, he's only on my Facebook friends list. I think I've never talked to him. He popped in my head a couple months ago.
Yeah.
I kid you not. Half hour night later, messages me, hey, how are you and Dell doing? Dell's not answering his phone. You think you can give him a message, get a hold of me? It was like, no way. No. Way. And then I keep saying I got to be able to do this with money. If I can do this with people, I should be able to just think of a certain amount of money and call that in, right? It's all energy.
Right. Oh my gosh, that is
The
so
main
funny.
point is,
Yeah.
it's not as impressive as what you're doing, but what I'm saying is,
Mhm.
it seems like most people I talk to that believe in these kind of things, or consciously focus more on the positive than the negative, recognize that fear or lower vibrational emotion is basically food to something like that. So you counter it with something positive, which raises your vibration. You're no longer an energetic match, or at least you try not to be. That makes sense to me. I'm hearing more and more incredible things like this happening with people. Have you heard that as well?
To an extent, yeah. You broke up a little bit, so I didn't hear everything that you were mentioning.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. I was trying to catch all that you're telling, but yeah. So yeah, it's sorry I didn't catch all that.
Well, what it was basically was, I was saying, when I think somebody, I don't even purposefully think of somebody. Their name will just pop into my head, and within an hour to a day, they will call me, contact me.
Oh, that's like the Celestine prophecy. Kind of like Celestine prophecy. Yes. Oh, I think that is definitely the universe saying, you pay attention. This is coming to you for a reason. Oh yeah. I've heard a lot of that, and I've experienced it a lot myself. It's wild. And you're speaking of Akashic records, however people say.
However, I know people say it different. Yeah.
Yeah. I had a couple experiences with that. And again, I don't
share before you go. We're never have enough time. You and I could talk for hours. When we get on the phone, we do. But
you know what? Next week, how about next week? I don't mind popping back on next week. That's fine.
I would love to have you back because I know we're barely going to scratch the surface. But you gotta please share this part too. So
yes, awesome. Yes, because it's like there is so much to cover, and it's like I apologize. This is a wild day. I'm telling you.
It's not your fault. She's too popular, folks. That's a good thing.
No, it's all good. But yeah, so it was really interesting to me. So, gosh, this is a really wild experience that I had. I was in college, and my college roommate, I was just talking to her about something weird that had happened, and just chewing the fat. We're sitting on the futon. I get up to go use the bathroom, and I go walking across the living room, and I was no longer there, just gone. And I'm looking at this scene in space, and it was a spinning sun, is the closest I can say, and it spun counterclockwise. If you're looking at it from here, it's kind of funny, I always think. And then next to it, on the right of it, was a spinning red mass of light. And I knew that spinning red light was like a library of anything and everything that had ever happened. It was recorded there. I knew this. And it was, if you're looking at this ball of the spinning sun to the left, in the upper right-hand side, not connected, but just pretty close to it, was where this place was. And the spinning sun is the spinning sun. I knew it was called the Source. I just knew that name. And there were trillions upon trillions of souls in that spinning sun. And as you got closer, you could see the individual balls of light. And when thoughts, emotions, missions, goals, they would like flow through this light. And it's like a love soup, and everybody contributed to this site.
Do you know that? I quote you because I've never forgotten you sharing this with me, and I always say you've described it just like a love soup, and I always give you fun because I've never heard it that way. So perfect. Go on. Sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. But everybody contributed to the thought as it went past, and it became one. It went to the center, and it became one. And it's like we all contributed to it, and this thought came by. And I remember casually, and I mean casually, thinking, I guess I could do that. And it was like everybody's took a step back in line, like, well, she said it, and all of a sudden, shoom, I'm shooting out of this love soup and just the warmth, and I'm flying through this cold, black, dark space. And I tell people, I'm like, if I could have dug my fingernails into the side of space and screamed, I take it back, I don't want to go. That's what I would have done. It wasn't gracious. It wasn't like Supergirl. No, I was like, no. I mean, really, because it was painful to leave the love soup. But the Akashic, I didn't have a name for it. I just knew, I called it like a library of knowledge is what was to the upper right side.
It is. I consider that. Like the people that I access, I shouldn't say that, the entities, the positive entities, they're known to the way my teacher actually is in Los Angeles, and she's always taught us it's the masters, teachers, and loved ones, and it's always a collective. It's higher than the astral realms. It's higher. It's exactly what you said, though. Like a lot of people think it's like a library with little rows of books and stuff. She's taught us exactly kind of how you described it, and that's what I experience is there's nowhere. It's an infinite. Like you don't go to a library and open a door and open a door and open a door. Yeah. And then when we do a reading with somebody, I take them to a place called their heart space. It's not their heart chakra. And we enter in because it's believed, at least the way, and it works for me with what she's taught. It's the seat of the soul, how you access the soul for all humans. And we get into it and we go in there. And the reason why we access the masters, teachers, and loved ones, or the collective, is because they're able to add more to the answer than they say just specifically working. You could, if you want to, just work with one individual like Mother Mary, or Jesus could be there, or we know that Archangel Metatron, I've been taught and I believe, he's the one that manages the whole situation, if you will. But you could get Buddha, you could get, I mean, anybody could come through as an ascended master, a saint, anything. So it's pretty cool, and they meet you where you're ready. So if you've got a question, you usually ask about 4 or 5 more questions to really get a lot of information, and you always ask for whatever they're able to give you, and more, rather than limiting it and just saying, an infinite, sort of a definite question. Is that what you experienced, Heidi, or did you get to ask questions, or it was just sort of an observation that you got?
Oh, what I saw was a memory. That was my memory before I was born here, and agreeing to be born here, what I came here for, and it's exactly what I'm doing now. So it was an agreement. It's like a reminder. This is what you came here for, and what was really difficult at the time. I had some time left in school, and I was like, "What am I doing here? Yeah. This is not what I came here for." Oh my God, I got to drop out of school and I got to get busy. Yeah. It's like, whoa, what's going on with you, Heidi? I'm like, you have no idea. I said, this place was like remembering my first name is Heidi. I mean, of course I know this place. It was like my old backyard or something. I knew this place. I knew everything there. I knew my purpose. I know I have the whole picture for myself. And it was like, I have to sit in school to get a piece of paper to say I'm legit. What is this? Nothing made sense to me. And it was actually kind of depressing to be here versus
you read
there.
My mind. I was going to ask you, were you depressed? Oh my God.
I'm digging it out of your head. So think something else, Laura Lee. I want it. Give it here. So funny. Yeah,
but not be though when you come from that, because like you said, it probably felt like at home. Like you said, you knew exactly where you were. And then I can't even imagine, because I really study near-death experiences, and almost anybody that's had a positive experience says the same thing. I didn't want to come back. I didn't want to come back here.
Right. Yeah. Well, I was standing in the middle of the living room. I was in a near-death experience. I'm like, I just get whisked off, and I'm like, what on earth? I'm like, and my friend is looking at me, and I'm backing up going, how could I forget? How could I forget? How could I forget? And she's like, what is going on? And she's like, how could you forget what? I'm like, how could I forget who I am and why I'm here? And it's really helped set me on my journey.
Out of them, your roommates. Because if I remember, you said you were just basically standing there like they didn't know what had happened to you, right?
She didn't, because I mean, it was just so bizarre. All I did was stand up and started walking, and I was not there anymore. And then I'm saying, how could I forget? How could I forget? She's like, what's going on here? She'd had her share of strange things though too, so she didn't really question. But it was a wild experience, and it brought everything so up close and personal to me. This world was really hard to take serious afterwards. I can't
even imagine.
It was really hard, but I had severe seizures as a kid, and I mean, I wasn't thought to. I mean, status epilepticus. That's the only type of seizures I would have. It's like continuous, And they're like, oh, she's gonna be like brain damaged, or she's not gonna make it. She just keeps having these horrible seizures, and
I'm thinking, how is she not brain damaged?
yeah. It's like, and it's like I would have these memories of this heaven-like place, but it wasn't always following a seizure. It was I would just get these new memories of having been there, and I would just talk to my sister about it, and it's like, oh, it's good. I saw this place, and I called it the Crystal City. I saw the people in robes, and I'd be taught things, and just wild. I don't know.
School you saw, right? You said sometimes you were teaching the class and sometimes you were in the classroom, right?
I was in the classroom. I don't recall teaching, but I was told, it's weird. Like I was between these ancient Roman buildings once, and I saw this, it was like a half of a pillar coming from the ground, and there were some names etched in stone on this stone parchment. And I was like looking, I said, is my name on here? And he said, no, but soon it will be. And I didn't know what it was. But like, yeah, so it's a place I was very familiar with. And I had a guide that walked me around and took me into the classrooms. And yeah, it was really rather interesting. But I can't tell you that, I don't know. There's so much that I learned there. And I know there's more to remember, but I just don't have all of that. and I guess I'll know it when I need it, type of thing.
Did you find that you had any new gifts unlocked after that experience? Because I know a lot of people do, and I know it wasn't an NDE or near-death experience, but even experiencing where you went, source, home, people talk about that and then seem to have a lot of abilities unlocked.
Well, I guess I just I'm so stuck in school, and I was doing 3 jobs. I wasn't thinking. I'm like, oh God, channel people are waking me up at night, and I really got to go to school again. It was a hard program. I'm like, good Lord, and it's like I did see a lot of things.
The program you were in.
It was hard. I'm like, I felt like I was going to become a physician by the end. I'm like, I felt I could go all the way after that, to be honest. I'm like, what's the difference? What more do I need to know? But this is crazy, but we had a lot of, I guess every year a student would commit suicide at my school, which is sad. I was like, oh, I know it's a tough program, but geez. But so it's wild to experience some of these things. And I know that I've seen a lot of things. I know I experienced a lot of things, but I didn't know how to categorize where I fit. And, that was part of this conversation that I had with this New York Times Psychology Today journalist, Maureen Seberg, and interviewing me for weeks and helping me figure out the different levels of synesthesia that I had and the machine empathy type of thing. And and then, these holes in my wrists. I mean, just so many different things. And they're so...
What did they think? Or am I going to leave my listeners hanging and have you come back? What did they think? When did this develop? Were you born with this? Or where did it come from?
Well, you're talking about these holes in my wrist. I have
all of it.
All of it. It's just so strange. Apparently I was born with all of this. I just didn't know. A couple of years ago, I had to have x-rays because I started having extreme pain in my wrist there. My bones felt like they wanted to rip apart. That's what it felt like. And I did have an incident that caused some problems with my wrist. So I had them x-rayed, and I look at the x-ray, it looks like a bullet hole through my wrist. I'm like, what on earth is that? And they're like, oh, that's just a bone cyst. I'm like, okay, that's perfectly round.
That's not a bone cyst.
Yeah, I was like, that is really odd. And then, like a year or two later, I get the other wrist x-rayed, and boom, same thing. I'm like, oh, come on now. I'm like, this is really strange. And I Googled it, and I'm like, okay, there's only been 3 reported in the world. I'm like, but how many people x-ray their wrists? I mean, maybe that's just, that just so happens to be. And then
LSI tubing in the pedicle field, that is rare, especially if both wrists right in them. No, that at it. Come on,
it was weird. I know, but yeah. So, but yeah, it is different, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, there's more things that I spoke to you about that's even more rare. Well, no, that's probably the most rare one that I've got with my wrists. But I've got quite a few others that are kind of rare too. And it's like, I don't know how to categorize it. And taking on Satan, I guess I needed these things. I don't know.
I just got this vision, and it's so crazy, but I know I could share it with you because you won't think I'm nuts, but I can almost do it. You're not Spider-Man, I know, but like this energy power coming through these holes.
Oh, you know what? You want to hear something really strange? Like when, it's so odd. If I want to hug somebody or somebody's in pain and I just want to make them feel better, my forearms really hurt, like down to the bone, like hurt. Just the forearms. I never knew I had holes, at the base, at my wrist area. But yeah, and it'll ache so bad. I have to rub my muscles and ache. It's just so strange. Oh. But yeah, so it's like empathy coming through my arms. So it's really, I always found that kind of bizarre. And then to find this.
I keep getting a vision because I'm a medical intuitive as well, and also empathic. So I pick up people's pain if I touch them, or I can feel it as well. But I can almost visualize if you were able to channel or learn to move it through and a release through that area. It's got to serve some purpose why you have that. I don't know, especially when you feel that much of a buildup there. It sounds like almost of the pain or
yeah. It's wild. And both of my wrists are, congenitally, like I was born with dislocated. So both of my wrists are dislocated as well. Yeah, I didn't know about
we
that.
don't see that a lot. I worked in the NICU and I worked in maternal newborn, and that's the first thing you do, head to toe physical assessment. I can't say I've ever seen that before.
Oh, it gets stranger.
Shoulders, yes.
Shoulders are okay.
Clavicles, yes, but not wrists dislocated.
Yeah, I didn't know that they were, and they still are. I'm just I had no idea, but oh my goodness, there's some things I'll have to talk to you further about. I don't know.
You're coming back next Tuesday, okay? Because I haven't booked anybody. I knew for some reason, leave it open.
Awesome, that's cool. Yeah, so I apologize, and then we'll have 2 more hours to go through it. So there you go.
And I know it's going to fly by because like I said, we've been talking about doing this for a while. You were moving, then I moved.
Yeah.
And you said it in the new year. So I am so glad you came on tonight. You got to tell people where to find you. I'm sure most people know, but just in case. And folks, she's coming back next Tuesday for 2 hours for sure. So we'll have lots of questions for you too. I'm sure you'll have way more to tell us.
Yes, there's a lot to discuss for sure. Well, they could find me at HeidiHollis.com. It's HeidiHollis. And and my shows are just an hour before yours on Monday night. So there you go. So the Outlander show. So I'm sorry I have to take off, but we will continue next week. And you have a wonderful rest of the show. Thanks for having me on.
You too. I love you, girl. I'll be in touch. And I'll be back next Tuesday.
Very cool. You too. Okay, bye-bye.
Have fun in your thing.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye. I want to thank Heidi. She's so awesome. She's always an amazing, amazing guest. And it was not her fault. We ended up, she found out literally 5 minutes before coming on that somebody that was supposed to reschedule thought it was tonight. It was a scheduling thing, but she's coming back next Monday. I do want to acknowledge everybody in the chat room. I'm so sorry. I couldn't stop her though, because I knew she was just here for an hour and she's so interesting. So Zach Mann said, I've tried that too, Laura Lee. So far, haven't got the winning Powerball numbers. And Crab Lopez says, yay, next week. Though who we do have here with me, and I'm really grateful he's here, is my partner in crime that I live with, my hubby, the Del. He's on an hour before me on the delicious recipe. Welcome, Del.
Hello, how's it going?
Good. How are you? I can't see you on camera. I don't know if your camera's not working or what it was, and then it kind of popped out on us. But
I'll try it again here.
Yeah, let's see. There you go. There's your handsome face. So I figured what we're going to talk about. I know you talked about it on your show, but I thought let's talk about the coronavirus. Everybody's talking about it. I don't know. Even have you seen any differences from the hour that you were, an hour since you've been off the air? Have you seen anything different come up that people might not know about, or anything new?
No, it's just the same old ticker tape, just as numbers sort of go up. But like I said before, those are just what's being reported, right, on the test. Like you got to figure when this first started, the testing kits that they had were ineffective, that were given out by, I'm not sure if it was FEMA or whatever agency that did that. They weren't testing properly, or they were ineffective tests. So then they came out with new tests, and I think there's different types of tests that they're using or whatever. But so they're not testing the whole population of the earth either. So your numbers are going to be all skewed all over the place. And then there's also talks about that certain countries are hiding numbers.
Yeah,
and that's another sort of impact. So when you look at these things, like off of like that Roy Labs stats channel off of YouTube there, that's giving you sort of a minute by minute up to date sort of talliation. That's just what's being given. Like the numbers could be anything.
Mm-hmm.
And that was another part that I had talked to you earlier about, is about this these deaths. Like I've been searching for quite a while, and I haven't found any name associated to any death.
Mm-hmm.
Right? They just like they just have a number there that this is 800 dead, but no name. And plus, they've never found patient 0 yet either. And that's always sort of an important thing too. So that leads into this whole conspiracy about was this manufactured, who found yet, or it's being hidden. And so that's where you're getting these really missed messages that media is giving you. And then you hear from alternate media and from that are in those places, totally different stories, right?
I want to tell you that Zach Mann said, "Hey, what's up, Del?" So he said hi to you. Well, the one thing I think it's kind of stuck with me is I first read that Canada only had 6,500 ventilators for our population. What do we have, 3.3 million about?
Of what?
In Canada, population?
What, we have about 30 million people?
No, I said we have, how many people? I thought we had about 3.3, not million, that wouldn't be right. How many do we have, about 30 million?
Yeah, I think we're around 30 million, I believe.
Yeah, I was wrong as soon as I said 3.3. So we have about 30 million. Okay, so we have a grand total of 6,500 ventilators for a population of 30 million people. And I was like, oh my gosh. Then I seen the US, and you have, what is it, 330 million?
Yeah, 330, 340, somewhere around there.
Yeah, you guys have 10,000 ventilators. So there's a real ventilator shortage, which is fine. But what I'm reading about, and I'll tell you, my heart goes out to the doctor that has to make this decision. Now, again, this is coming through the media. Is it true or not? But they're saying that if, say, somebody in our age group, which is middle age, and you've got young people coming in, or you know, a 20-year-old or teenager or child that needs a ventilator, and they got to make a choice, guess who gets the ventilator? They got their whole life ahead of them. We've already lived.
The person with the most money.
That too, because it's not even based on need. It'll be based on, because I know some of the states that have higher numbers. I was reading this. No, one of the great things too is you're seeing that Formula One companies that made parts for cars and GM and whatever, they're, especially in Canada, they're announcing some grants to get you to do it's people that do retooling, you said, Del? That die?
Yeah. Well, they've gone to the automotive industry and to just change their machines around, so they have to make new dies and casting systems there to make the parts, right? So instead of making car parts, they change the equipment, they change the casting system, so they have to tool all those machines out and then create to start making parts. Right, It's the same thing that happened during the war when they did with Bombardier up here in Thunder Bay. They changed it all around there from making what they were making there, snowmobile parts and whatever else in trains, into making military equipment.
Yeah, so now it's medical equipment. But my whole point, and I was having this conversation with you and one of our neighbors, was I've worked in critical care. I've worked in the NICU. I've worked in ICU when I was a student for a couple months. When you're sick enough to be on a ventilator, you need one-to-one nursing, and not just any nurse can work a ventilator. To be able to manage a patient on a ventilator, you at least need about 6 weeks of intensive training. You really do. It's not just managing buttons and whatever. That's my fear for staff, because you're hearing, staff is getting this, they're getting burnt out. I remember even working in the NICU. I used to work 3 weeks on, 1 week off, and my last week was 4 12-hour night shifts, a short shift change into 2 12-hour days. Well, there were many times we didn't have enough staff. I would work 18 hours straight, no coffee, nothing to drink, nothing to eat. I couldn't even go to the bathroom. I was not off my feet. Then would go to the other side of town, drive back home, come back, and the same thing again. And then on my week off, the phone would ring incessantly day and night, because you don't know what's going to be walking through the door, that you're going to need staff, because you just couldn't call in any nursing staff. That is a real concern of mine. I don't know where they're going to get all these nurses, and never mind the fact I heard from my moderator from my Facebook group. She's in Sardinia, Italy, and she said most of the problems they're seeing are in the north of Italy, and they're crying for doctors and nurses up there. And she did, again, she's entitled to her opinion, but she sort of said, well, I don't understand why they just don't jump on a plane and go up there. I said, because they're worked to the bone. They're not going to get a break. There's not enough medical equipment to protect them. And I've seen, again, no names, but a lot of people that are in the medical profession that are getting this, especially over in Europe. There was a doctor actually that released a viral post, I know. I don't know. What's your thoughts on that, Del?
Well, there's been lots of posts on different social media platforms of people like you. The big one that was around there, Tom Hanks and his wife. You got the Prime Minister's wife of Canada that's tested positive, and you have a lot of people that have mentioned that they tested positive, right? And that was the whole thing, is that, okay, there's people testing positive, but no name to anybody that's died. Besides some people they've mentioned there, they haven't mentioned any names that I've seen so far, but someone that's already had an existing illness. And this is the thing, is this is where the sort of the controversy comes in, or not controversy, or the wondering is that, did this virus, it is a virus, and I'm not saying that it doesn't exist, that this expedient things forward and push things forward to a level that caused the death. But I haven't heard of anybody, and I've looked around there, that was like totally healthy, caught the COVID-19 virus and then passed away. Nobody like that I've seen any mention through the internet, through different sources. So that's sort of the question there, when you have these high death tolls and no names associated with it, right? Is this a sort of you can get into the conspiracy part about it. Is this a sort of wag the dog event, right, to manipulate something that's going on globally? And I sort of touched on this about this 2030 agenda stuff about slow boiling the frog, right? Whereas you're introducing and passing laws while people are distracted with this, being stuck at home, not going out. You have your social media to talk with stuff, and luckily they didn't shut down the internet again like they did with the YouTube there back, was that about a year or two ago? Where there was like, oh yeah, our server went down and globally shut down.
Yeah, they've got hundreds of servers all over the world, and it went out globally all at once. Yeah.
Yeah, do something like that again, right? Like, you got to figure, if you have just think North America, and you have so you got 330 million in the States, another 30 plus million here in Canada, so that's 360, and the internet goes down, and you have them all under self quarantine home stay. So unless you have cable TV or whatever, but if all the internet goes down, that's a huge supply chain of information and social contact that gets sort of wiped out. I was sort of thinking about this earlier, like before the internet was even a thing, right? And how we sort of talked, it was telephone usage and going out and meeting people. And if there was a quarantine stuff, you dealt with what you had at home. You had your VHS, you had books, you had board games to do. And I've noticed this on many other shows. We were just watching that Joey Diaz, The Church of What's Happening Now, and how people can't cope with being alone at home anymore because they're so used to being plugged into technology. And like he was saying, there is that he was used to he's been to jail before, and I've been there for a couple days too, and where you lose all your privileges basically, and you have to cope with those things.
It was no fault of your own. It was not like you're criminal.
Right. Yeah. But it's just it's people, like I call them, the tech babies, or the millennials, the new generation that basically have an umbilical cord to social platform media technology, and you cut that umbilical cord off and they're stuck at home. It could actually cause a lot of mental problems you could think about, or psychological problems. Because we both have watched a show before there where I think they do it in Southern Ontario, where they take different people from different walks of life that are dependent on their technology, and they put them out in Algonquin Park and teach them life skills, and without their phones and tablets and computers, and where they disconnect them. And a lot of people really have a hard time cutting that. They don't have it. It's almost like it's worse than crack cocaine to some people, eh?
Well, it is, and I've been thinking that lately because I've been saying to you privately, God forbid, please, I hope they don't let the internet down. Just because, our even an emergency phone line depends on the internet for us here. But you know what? I'll stop myself and I'll think, God, you know what? You've grown up without the internet. You know what to do. We could handle it. Like it's people that are younger. I do want to add some of the comments Zachman made. He said, if it came down to me or a child that would need the ventilator, I'd let the child have it. Kids should come first, no matter what. Now, Zach, normally I would agree with you on that, but I'm going to just give you a personal example, okay? Of course, they have their whole life ahead of them, but I have a child that's not a child, but he's like a 5-year-old. He's 22 years old with severe autism. He's never known anybody or any other world but his mother. Stayed with his dad when we were moving for a month, and that was not going well for either one of them. They did what they had to do. So he needs his mother here. So say, God forbid that ever happened. Who's going to look after him? Or think about this, Zach, like you're engaged, you got a beautiful fiance, but imagine, say you got, just say flip of the draw, you end up with twins or triplets at home, little babies, and you need a mom home to raise them, and you're the only sole provider. Like there's lots of different scenarios about so many ethics, never mind personal situations, rather than just saying always, of course, yes, absolutely. I if there's a dying child in myself and I'm not dying, yeah, I'm going to say that too. But I got to think of my own child at home and say, you have children at home too. What do you do? Who's going to provide for those kids? Who's going to look after your wife and family? Like there's lots of things to think about when you're single or you don't have any kids. Yes, absolutely. And I understand it's the right thing to do, but I'm saying there's always an exception. And I don't know if you got anything to add to that, Del, but.
Yeah, there's always exceptions to everything. Like not every, like that's the big problem that with a lot of these, bless you, a lot of these, you'll see these issues that are being put forward with these social justice groups or any other type of group, period, right? And they make a blanket statement to encompass.
Zach's just a stand-up guy, and
I'm not saying him. No, I'm saying just I know you know that, but right. I'm saying you notice this throughout a lot of the social media, and where different groups will have this position stand. But they're not putting into account all the variables that are in there, and not every situation is the same. I'm not saying anything against him. I'm just saying you see this sort of understanding or ununderstanding of situations. So every situation is different, and it's just like every single body's immune system is different. They're not all the same, and this is what comes into this part with vaccines. And why there's a big problem with group just going blanket vaccinating everybody. Everybody's not going to act the exact same way. And there's a big thing there that a lot of stuff has happened where there was misinformation. They're saying that it was only old people got this, and then it was only old people that had a respiratory problem got this. No, everybody can contract this, and the problem is that with contracting it, you can pass it on to many, many people. And by happenstance, you might go and give it to another person that has a immune system that is weakened, whether it's old, young, any age. And you've fully given this without your knowledge because you weren't up to date with what's going on.
Because you feel well. I'm seeing a lot of people thinking, well, I feel well, I'm not sick. Why can't I be out? Because you could be carrying it. You may not get it, but you could hurt somebody else. Same thing. I was running into people tonight. I had to go to the doctor's. Ended up wearing a special mask and gloves. Even wore my sunglasses or reminded me not to touch my eyes. But people believe, well, no, that's supposed to be false, that dogs can get it. Well, I urge you to look up most websites. If you have the coronavirus in your country, look up the website for your vet's offices. You will see that it's written, I know at least here in our city, and I've checked out a few other, again, just through Canada or some of the northern states, that veterinarian offices, again, what they're doing here, especially locally, you can't go in. You have to call, you have to have an appointment, you wait in your car until you're called to come in. Then you have to basically hose your hands, arms, everything down for 20 to 30 seconds. It should be 2 minutes. They do a screening in the meantime, and only one person is allowed in with your animal into the back room. And also they have right on every single website here that I've seen, that I've looked up. I think I access 5 or 6 vet offices, and they're all saying the same thing. If you have symptoms or your dog has symptoms of coronavirus, do not come in. Call us and we will provide you an at-home care plan. But that's the problem. There's so much misinformation out there. I think people just don't know where to look or even believe it. Because again, is this really, if we get into conspiracy theory, I'm going to get to Zach's other comment here in a second. Is this, is this creating all this fear and all this other stuff because they're turning our heads? Is there something else going on behind the scenes that we're not seeing, that's why we're turning our heads towards this? It's all fear-based stuff, and we're all getting told different things. So
yeah, that could be it. Like what I did talked about earlier there about Agenda 2030 stuff, and there's a lot of things in here. And one of the quotes that I given, I'll read it again here, and it was by David Rockefeller, and it says, "We are on the verge of a global transformation. All we need is the right major crisis, and the nations will accept the new world order." And you've got to look at what's going on here. You have a global catastrophe going on here with every nation around the world, right? And that's just a quote like that.
He's one of the families, Rockefeller.
Yeah,
he's one of the families. Mm-hmm.
Right.
Because we're hearing a lot of big name people, because I wanted to add this, because this is Zach's other comment he had made. He said one of the people that tested positive was Rand Paul, who is a senator here in the U.S. He's the only politician I trust, meaning Zach Mann, because he is a member of the old right and a non-interventionist. Are you aware of who that is yourself, Del, with doing some...
I've heard the name there. And
I think I have to.
Yeah, but don't get me wrong. Like, people will contract this, right? And I've mentioned on my show there before about Dr. John Campbell. He has a YouTube show, and he's actually pretty knowledgeable in the effects. And he explains he dumbs it down for non-medical people, which is sort of good. And he explains it pretty well. And he has sort of explained that there was 2 strains of this COVID-19, an L strain and an S strain. And the L strain was a little bit more stronger, I guess you could say, lethal in a way, where the S strain was like a regular flu type. Like, they're both the exact same thing, but the severity of it. So a lot of, like, they say, like, pretty much half the population, whatever it is, 7.7 billion people of the globe, half the population will contract this coronavirus, whether or not you contracted in a way that it affects your immune system, that you can't fight it off and you perish, or some other lasting effects, because there is intermediate effects too as well, right? Or you just go through it and you survive it, your body fights it off, right? But there's also talk too is that this is going to be coming in waves. So what do you think that when this passes off? I think what is North America pretty much on a 30-day shutdown basically right now, and so.
But they're talking up here in Canada,
right? And then they're talking about even going longer, and you're not going to see a vaccine or a type thing for at least a year to 18 months. So this might be waves of sickness going through this whole entire time as it passes by, right? It might infect a certain population. This other population might not be affected as much, and then they get it, and then it starts up again, right?
Well,
there's no information.
Yeah, didn't I see an article? I could be wrong. I thought maybe it was you that posted, or somebody else, that just because you contract the coronavirus doesn't mean that you have immunity, especially if it comes in a second wave. And if that's true, think about a vaccine. A vaccine is a little tiny, tiny supposed dead piece of whatever they're injecting into you that stimulates the immune system to make antibodies against this. So how are they even going to make a vaccine if that really is true?
Yeah, that's that's all of this misinformation that's going on here, and like this I can't remember what his first name was. Osterholm. He was on the JRE podcast,
Michael.
and
Yeah.
Michael Osterholm was
Yeah.
his name, and he had said there that they still don't even have vaccines for SARS, MERS, all those other coronaviruses that happen in the turn of the century here. So do you think that they're going to find the one for this one when they haven't even found the other coronavirus vaccines yet?
Mhm.
So there's a lot of misinformation, right? And timing, things that are going to happen. And you can put this whole part in the conspiracy that this was planned to happen at this way because of they don't want Trump elected next or this year. There's lots of conspiracy, funny or not, and stuff like that. But anything is possible now. When you see what's happened through the course of history with different black ops, private companies, CIA, NSA, Mossad, Vatican, different organizations that don't report any of what their doings or monies or whatever, their involvement in changing countries' politics and drug trade and everything like that. Anything today is possible. That's where I'm sort of sitting on the fence of, not sitting on the fence. I think anything is possible.
That just hit me tonight, though. Excuse me, I gotta stretch my leg out. That just hit me tonight when I was thinking about that, because you and I have been talking privately about this, that we've seen quite a bit of evidence, people that seem to be on the ball medically that are talking about this, that this is just the first wave. That it may come back, and just because you've contracted it the first time does not necessarily mean you're immune from it. You're just as vulnerable the second, third, or fourth time. But the issue to me was then, how the heck are you going to make a vaccine? Because that's what a vaccine does. It stimulates your body's immune system to create antibodies to protect you from contracting this. So how are you going to do that?
Right. That's that strain of the virus that they're fighting, right? And that's the big problem that we've talked about before with flu vaccines.
Yep.
Right? Because the flu vaccine is they make a guess on what the next year's flu is going to be, then they make a vaccine for it. Whether they get it right or not is just a role of probability. And that's what it comes down to this. And there's so many different things about this virus, about why it's done what it's done, why it's spread so much. Well, you can understand why it's spread because our international travel is limitless now, right? You can be anywhere in the world in a matter of 24 hours from wherever you want to be. And so we didn't have that same problem that we had back before, like when the Spanish influenza stuff happened. That was people returning from the war. That's where it spread globally then, right?
Yeah.
So that was travel coming back after the World War I or whatever. This now we have incidents here, whether it was done on purpose or it was done by Mother Nature. That's all unclear right now, but it spread globally. And if you even look at the map, like it's covering every area, well, except for places that aren't reporting, like Africa and stuff like that, where they haven't been doing as much testing, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, the other thing to look at too is I get people sending me all kinds of stuff about this, and somebody had sent me a video. At first, the audio wasn't on one of my phones, so good thing I listened with the audio. And it sounds like it's somebody from Australia. They collect a bunch of video clips off of YouTube about what's going on in other parts of the world. Well, then they showed in the video they were not allowed to share it on Facebook Messenger. It would be blocked and say error, error, error. So what this guy did was he screenshotted, like he basically filmed his screen playing these videos. They're somewhere over in Asia. Again, can we prove that it's going on at this time period? No, but there are there's people deceased that are lying in the streets. You can see as you're going through, like somebody driving along, filming it. They've got all kinds of vehicles going through, spraying stuff into the air. My main point is what are we not knowing and what are we seeing? Like, again, you're hoping you're going to get the truth. Obviously, we're so close to the United States and us, or, you know, I've got friends over, as many people do overseas, that are sharing what's going on in their neck of the woods kind of thing. But I guess to me, and it's still in the back of my mind, is what's really behind all this, because there was another friend of mine. At first, when I saw the video he had sent me, I thought, oh God, this sounds like a religious zealot. Then when I watched it, they kind of had an interesting point. What they were basically trying to say, that every time we've had a good-sized world pandemic, there has been an energetic shift in something in the world. So, for example, the Spanish flu, that was when radio waves basically enveloped all around the world. They were talking about another flu when in the late 1960s, when I think all the satellites went up, and then they said that with this pandemic in Wuhan, a month before, they all went to 5G in that area. And apparently, now again, can I prove it? No, this is just one person saying it, but we have a lot of satellites that are blasting a lot of connection to help with the connection with the 5G. You probably understand a little better than I would, but what's your thoughts on that?
Well, that's a question that's been sort of asked quite a bit with technology and the radiation that's given off on all these smart devices, cell phones, yep. Wi-Fi, 4G, 3G, 5G, radio communication towers, Doppler radar, HARP. There's reports or I can't even remember the word there. Stuff done by MIT, written reports and stuff like that about influencing with geotechnology and radio waves and manipulating weather and they don't know the extent of what any of this technology does. I think I showed you before, there was a picture of the early 1900s in New York, and they had all the electricity cables and telephone cables all strung throughout all downtown, right? And just a mass of wires like all over the place. And you can figure that's with just landlines. Mm-hmm. Now you figure the population in New York is probably, 7 billion or 7 million or 5 million or something like that. And you have all of them on using 2 or 3 different smart devices that broadcast a Wi-Fi signal. So
wires.
You like if you actually put a wire to where these things were going, it would probably you wouldn't be able to walk anywhere. So you got to think about there really hasn't been any concrete studies done that and either they've been sort of hidden or stopped or blocked or whatever about what the actual effect all these microwaves, radio waves, Wi-Fi waves, 5G waves are doing to your body. And that's the thing. Like I think I've mentioned to you, or I might have mentioned on my show there, is that we're made up of water. We have a lot of minerals in our body. We have our body is an bioelectric machine, right? Mm-hmm. And so when you zap frequencies at any other object, it reacts, and it's got to be the same effect that happens here. And there is a lot of weaponry that uses frequencies to stop crowds. We've heard of things like the brown note, and we heard about stuff that high frequencies, what they've been talking about with MK Ultra stuff that blasting that through radio signals on the radio or through TV, or even shooting them from a vehicle towards a home. They've been doing this. I think what they do in Waco, Texas, during that big crash thing there, they were blasting frequencies at the compound. Like this technology has been around for a long time. Even in the Bible, there they had Joshua. I think it was Joshua with his trumpets. They went around the city 7 times, blowing their trumpets, and the sound of the trumpets crumbled the walls. So there's talk about technology like this, sound transmission and sort of frequency that can cause disturbances. So what is it doing to the human body? There's a lot of doctors and there's a lot of companies out there that go and measure these waves in people's homes that are having major headaches or migraines or inflammations and stuff like that. Depression. And they're finding they're finding that these frequencies are having an adverse negative effect on their body. So they have companies coming in and putting a type of blocking paint, basically like tinfoil hatting your home and blocking out outside radiation signals, Wi-Fi from coming into your house, basically like almost like a Faraday cage of your house. So what is it actually doing? And the companies that are creating this technology, do they want this known? No. These are $1 billion a year companies that are making things. And do the actual public, sheeple out here, do you want to give up your smartphone if you found out it was giving you tumors in your brain?
Well, that's what I'm going to add to this. I want to bring up, don't let me forget about what you've talked about history, erasing history, but I also want to bring up Zach's comment in between. The first thing I want to add to this, though, is that's what was part of this video that was sent to me about the changing energy shifts that envelope the world every time we've had these pandemics. But then there was a doctor on there talking sort of what some of the things you've mentioned. We've had the perfect storm. We've got, I don't care whether you want to believe there's chemtrails or contrails, whatever you want to call it. They have openly admitted that they're spraying aluminum into the air for the fake. I mean, we can do a whole show on the fake agenda for global warming. Never mind, there's fluoride in all the water. Never mind. Now we've got, I forget what the other one he had added. It was strontium. I forget where it was coming from.
Barium, strontium, aluminum. Yeah.
And then the last one was 5G, which is at the perfect megahertz, 2.4 megahertz or something he was talking about, that it's the perfect storm to create issues with the human body, with the pineal or pineal gland, so on and so forth. I do want to read also Zach's comment, and then I'd love for you to talk a little bit, Del, because I think this is important about how history's been erased, so we don't get to see the mistakes that have been repeated before. But Zach had a good comment. He said, I believe that the virus was allowed to spread to destabilize economies and encourage people to give up more civil liberties. In parts of the U.S. here, that's already aspects of martial law. We're getting it here too, Zach, and talking to people over in Europe, it's no different. Pretty well, we're all in the same boat. A lot of people right here, we're not quite on house arrest, but they're starting to talk about fines. Everything's shut here in the province of Ontario unless it is absolutely deemed an essential service. And Heidi was just talking earlier about having to have paperwork in California to show where she was. It's happening everywhere. But I did want Del, like I said, to share also good comments. Zach, thank you so much for them tonight, as always. You had a good point when we've talked privately about the fact that we're getting history erased, basically. So we're not getting to see or learn from things that have been passed on. People aren't aware. We're recreating the same mistakes, are we not?
Yep, I think I mentioned that earlier too. I think on my show as well. I have a personal problem with that, with people that destroy artifacts, history, or try to stop the past from being there. Like when they've gone and removed books out of circulation that were classics because of one word in the book, or a way that people sort of describe things back then. You're seeing this in armies that have come into other countries during their riots in the Middle East, where they've destroyed their churches with churches that have been there for like hundreds and hundreds of years with tablets, destroying artworks, destroying old ancient sites, destroying stuff that's there. So it's because it's against what their religion or their belief system is. And once you destroy that stuff, you can't recreate it because then it's gone for good. Mm-hmm. And also with governments going in, Egypt, even places like the Vatican, Smithsonian, British Museum, going mm-hmm. into archaeology sites and removing all the information in a warehouse where it's not being viewed by the public, and nobody else can study it unless you write a report and they approve you to study this stuff. And that's always a big thing that I find a real hard time like getting my head around. Like, why would you do that? That's knowledge for everybody. The past is there for everybody to learn from. You can't go forward in the future unless you understand what happened in the past, the mistakes that happen. That's how you think. You learn and you grow by learning from your mistakes. When you hide all that stuff there, then it just repeats itself and you go, why is this happening? oh, well, this is the same thing that happened back then. Well, we don't know anything about that, right? That's how they do this, and they hide what's going on. That's a way to hide the movement. That's how the slow boiling the frog, right? You hide different little parts into what's going on, and then you're at this state of life and going, how did we get here? And unless you've lived through that whole entire time to see the change, the people that grow up in there, they'll just expect it to be how it is. Right, and that's a big problem with hiding history and changing history with classic characters.
Just read my changing it.
Like we watched a part there today where they're going in social justicing and alphabet gendering existing characters and writing a new story. Why don't you just create your own character? We saw what they did,
wasn't it?
We saw what they made with the new characters that Marvel had put out there, the alphabet flavored non-gendered binary whatever they are. But that's
a straight face. The guy that had developed it and illustrated them, he was laughing at the names. What was one of them? Not Slack Man. What was it? Like he was. There
was a Snowflake and something, and then there was I can't remember. There were weird names, anyways, but they were all the everybody is equal sort of thing, and non-gender binary and technology boy, and I can't remember what they were. It was crazy, but that's just bringing this sort of this.
Introducing them, I that was blowing my mind.
Yeah.
Like most people taking it seriously. You created them, you illustrated them, and you're still laughing at it because I said to Del off air, obviously, so, did someone force him to do this? Because he doesn't look like he's all in on this. Like it was like a joke to him.
Yeah, well, that's the way that the culture is sort of swung, and the way it's swung that way is because a small group, 1%, has made the most amount of noise, and so this whole thing about not offending anybody, right? Feelings mean more than actual truth, and that's a really dangerous thing to be, because then you don't have anything to. If somebody disagrees with you, well, you hurt my feelings on that, and then they whatever social media blast you off the
cancel culture.
Yeah, that's crazy stuff to be involved in. Like that's just I don't even understand how we got to that point, anyways. That's
I don't either, because to me, I think what makes us human, and the beautiful thing about it is we're all unique and different. So in trying to say that everybody's equal, everybody's the same, why not embrace who you are and the uniqueness of yourself? Celebrate that rather than, and what I'm finding too, we almost have this not vigilante, but mob mentality. Like you hear a little tiny bit of the story, and it's like that game of telephone that you're all sitting in a circle and you start out with one word, somebody whispers it in one ear and it goes all the way around. By the time you get to the last person, they're nowhere near what they heard. And that's what I'm finding. People are jumping on this mob mentality, and first thing they always want to say is go off yourself, go, you're a waste of space, you're whatever. And some people have committed suicide. Then you find out afterwards that the story they heard was nothing close to the truth. So I don't know how to even go back on all this, because I think that's what's important, is celebrating your uniqueness and what makes you different from everybody else. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, well, I was just going to say, it was called the Marvel's New Warriors comic, and those gender binary two characters was Snowflake and Safe Space.
Yeah, because they're embracing these names that normally don't have a positive connotation with it. Wasn't that it?
That's partially it, yeah. And then it was just crazy, but
they were in trans colors. The transgender community colors are pink and blue. That's also for gender, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. I don't have an issue with that. It's just, to me, I guess they're figuring that the only people that are going to buy comics are younger people, but that's not true. People of all ages and all, whether you're male, female, whether you're non-binary, whatever you are, people enjoy that. It's a fantasy type world. So, and then they had a bigger, larger sized female teenage girl. What was her name? Because I kept saying, what was her superpower? And I think all he said was she charges into things.
And
Doesn't
she's got a magic backpack.
Oh, yes. And I'm sorry, guys. This is my sarcastic nature. I said, what are they trying to say? This is Dora the Explorer grown up? Magic
Yeah.
backpack? I don't know. Like I said, this was just crazy. And the guy, if you get a chance and you want to, well, maybe you'll really love it. I don't know. I'm not trying to discourage you. But check it out and see what you think of these new comic book heroes. Because, again, the guy that I think created them, or at least illustrated them, could not keep a straight face introducing them. I think that spoke volumes, don't you?
Yeah. Well, that was the part, though, is that I found it was sort of odd, was they said, well, this is what the public wants. And all the people reviewing it are going, this is
not what we want.
Use the word as retarded. This is crazy. Eh? Like this is nuts. But
well, I think though, where they crossed the line, if you want to talk about that, was trying to turn the classic character James Bond into a female. That pretty well got nixed, because I mean, to me, even, and I say this to you all the time, is when you've got a classic, or you've got a great film, or you've got a classic character, why recreate it again? Why not use your imagination and create something new? Like, why do you have to go back, like female Ghostbusters? And I'm a female. I don't have a problem with that. It was perfect the way it was. It did not do well. Like I said, I think you just gotta, again, I don't understand why people can't just embrace the uniqueness of their own ideas, their own creativity. I don't know.
Well, that's part of this. That's a part of this Agenda 2030 point, or Agenda number 5. Achieve. It's called Gender Equality. Achieve gender equality and empower all women and girls. Promote the LGBTQ and feminist agendas. Marginalize families, heterosexuality, men and boys. And that's all part of this, into this agenda, out of the 17 agenda goals.
Did they say why?
What's that?
Did they say why? There's got to be a...
Well, the people that created this Agenda 2030, back in it went from 2012 to 2015, is they brought in academics and scientists and everybody like this to deal with this global program, right? And it was basically to combine social aspects, environment and economic aspects to basically put those all together to create sustainability in this planet, right? There's been lots of talk about overpopulation and use up of resources, right? But this is all from a very one-sided argument, and because we don't know exactly what is underneath the ground, how much there is of stuff. It's all speculation, right? And so the science on it is that it's out there, and we have these peer groups that are taught by teachers and universities and all the academic people and stuff like that, right? If they admit that there's a different truth than what it actually is, then actually what they have their tenure for and stuff like that they did their thesis on could be wrong. That's why a lot of new ideas are stopped, right? So actually, that's a whole part of this whole suspending information and new ideas, right? And hiding history. That's a big thing about this, even that history, just even the last point we had there, when they go in and they find something that's new, these universities or governments and that will go and collect all that stuff because it's in contradiction to what you've been spoon-fed into your knowledge taught at school, right? School was all started up there by the Church, Vatican Church, right? To teach the public and to teach the populace an agenda, a curriculum of what they wanted to be taught, not to learn new ideas, not to think outside the box, right? And you'll see a lot of people that have done really well in business and created inventions and that all dropped out of college or high school and stuff like that, right? It's a current, because like I've said this before to you, and that is that college, like school, is there to teach you how to be a good servant to the workforce, to the populace. You're a good little drone, worker bee for the hive, right? And college and university is there to let you go a little bit further, but to prove that you are really good at regurgitating information, that you can follow orders. Because what's the first thing they tell you when you leave college and university and get a job? forget everything that you learned in school. That's all useless information. Yeah. This is what you need to know, right? Mm-hmm. So all you do, like there is some things you do learn in college and university when you get into trades, or there is specifics and stuff like that you get a little bit more information from, though. But the basis of it all is showing that you can learn and you can regurgitate what needs to be taught.
True. Now we've only got a few minutes left here, but I was going to add, and I know we'll get a chance to discuss this a little bit later in the week too, because we'll mention that by the end of the show. But you've also brought up good points too that we can discuss in the future about the fact that there's no focus on trades anymore, and I think that's a really important thing. That's a real set of skills that a lot of people are not learning, not carrying forward, just assuming that there's somebody you can call to come fix something or build it or whatever. Well, when you're in quarantine like this, especially, say, for example, this is really just the tip of the iceberg as far as I'm concerned. What do you do then, right?
Yeah, like who can think outside the box to use something besides toilet paper, right? And that was right. And what was the biggest hoarding thing that everybody went there fear marketed? Told by everybody, go in there, toilet paper is going to run out, right? And there are so many other things. Like we're in North America. North America is the biggest user of toilet paper. Other countries have other systems that they use. Over here, it's toilet paper. And what did we do? Everybody went out there and was on a toilet paper binge to grab toilet paper because their life could not continue without toilet paper. But if you ever been went camping or hiking or been out in the bush, like I'd spent a good portion of my life out there, you find other things to use. When that roll of toilet paper that you had in your backpack is soaked with sweat, that's useless anyways, you find other ways to...
Not poison ivy. and on that note, Del, do you want to tell people where they can find you, please?
Yep, I'm on here on UPRN radio on Monday nights, just before your show there at 9 Eastern. I guess that'd be whatever the
8 Central.
8 Central, and it's called the Delicious Recipe with me, the Del, and we talk about things that are going on in the media, things that have gone in the past, things that have gone in the future, or things that go in the future, like say this Agenda 2030, and we sort of look at I question everything, right? So we ask the questions and then we look at the answers and then we question the answers. So we're sampling everything. We throw all the ingredients in the pot and you see where we end up at the end and how that sort of tastes.
Well, thank you so much for filling in last minute. I also want to thank my fantastic co-host almost, my guest tonight, Heidi Hollis. And as you heard it, folks, unless something changes, we're going to have her for a full 2 hours next Monday night. I can't wait. Also, if you'd like to book a reading with me and any energy healing sessions, especially maybe you need a little bit of encouragement or something that will really sort of give you something uplifting, positive, helpful from Spirit, please get a hold of me at facebook.com/Angel Rock, and you can book a paid reading with me or a session. Also, I have 2 groups on Facebook, Paranormal University and the Angel Rocker Tribe. I'd love for you to send me an invite, answer the questions, and we can add you to the group. We've got some great people in both of the groups. And lastly, I will be back tomorrow night, same time, 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. Central Standard Time with Tripping the Void with my PIC again. I call Del my PIC at home, my BFF, bestie, Seraphine Hurley. She's also my partner in crime. We'll be back again tomorrow night. Also, this Thursday, we have a special session coming up with Joe Montaldo. He is going to be discussing having a panel of us hosts on from 7 to 9 p.m. I believe that's Central. Is it, Joe?
Oh, yeah, you're good. 7 to 10. I was just listening.
Yeah, 7 to 10. So we're going to be discussing the coronavirus as well as what's going on in politics. Am I right, Joe?
Yeah. What's this I hear that Trudeau's an alien?
Ooh, we're going to find out more about... Well, you haven't heard Del's theory yet. He thinks his daddy... Tell him who you think his daddy is.
Fidel Castro.
He might be. He kind of looks a little bit like him.
That's what Del says, and apparently his supposed daddy, Pierre Trudeau, was nowhere
You know,
in the
it's
picture.
funny,
And his father
but
had him.
Castro was a good-looking man when he was young. Not when he was old. He looked
he looks almost like Justin Trudeau. And guess where his mother was 9 months before he was born? In Cuba.
And Cuba.
He kind of looks like that. You know, you never know.
Y'all seen pictures of them at the same age, and they could be twins.
No, I actually dropped in for a second because I was reading today. First, I read Trudeau said, "Y'all don't have to stay home," and then I seen him give a lecture or speech later today. He looked pissed. He was like, "Y'all just can stay home."
Because people
like,
aren't
dude,
staying
you just said
home.
earlier they didn't have. I said Canadians getting confused, but dude, you can make your mind up. Stay home. Don't go. Stay home.
Well, he was talking about social distancing, that people weren't getting the fact of social distancing, so they were figuring they could just go out to the park and 1,000 people could all be together, but they're all out in the park. And he's going, "That's not what I meant by this. I meant social distance, and to only go out if you need to, but go out and get fresh air, but don't go and all meet at the same place."
Yeah, that's America's got that problem. All this beautiful weather, everybody's wanting to go to the beaches and hang out. It's spring break. It's hard to make the youngins a break from college. It's hard to make them stay home. They're getting antsy, aggravated. They want to get out. And, you know, they keep hearing how bad this disease is, but like the lady they were talking to spring breakers in Florida yesterday, saying, "Why don't you go home?" The girl said, "Well, nobody I know is sick." Everybody they interviewed said the same thing. Nobody we know is sick.
Yeah, I watched that same interview there, and they were like, "Hey, well, we've been planning this for the whole school season. Like, we're not going to let this pass."
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, they were just like, "Nope, sorry, we ain't going there, people."
Yeah.
I don't know. It's weird. I mean, it's one of the things we'll be talking about Thursday, but it's weird. And then I heard our president today say, "Look, this ain't going to keep going like this." He said, "You know, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, we're going back to fixing the economy." He said, "It doesn't do no good to save everybody if there ain't no country for them to be in when it's safe."
Yeah.
So, and then China said they're doing good, but now they're scared that other countries might reinfect them. I'm like, oh, Lord.
Well, the videos I saw, like I mentioned earlier in the show, now, can I prove they were from Asia? No, but they were pretty scary. These are the ones that aren't getting up that you can't share on social media.
Well, I posted on all my pages, there's a set of videos that come from China, Italy, and Germany, and Spain. There's about 100 videos. They're all on my page. They're all from where they say they're from. You can look at them yourself and tell where they're from. Most of them, what you see is a lot of them is armed troops walking around in the streets in China.
Spraying stuff.
But more stuff. So is they got these guys in these full get-ups with these big smoking guns just spraying everything.
Yep.
They do have ones where they're showing people putting body bags and putting incinerators. Of course, all those people are dead, but still. They're showing that. There's about 10 videos of unrest where people are getting pissed, wanting to fight. One of my favorite one is this Chinese guy. He's sitting on the side of the road selling meat, right? He's got a table out there, just a regular table with 4 legs on it, and the meat's just on the table. No paper underneath it, no wrapping on the meat. It's just on the table. Now, you'd never see that in these countries. Even in South America, you wouldn't see that shit, but maybe 100 years ago, but not today. So it's so funny. The Chinese police pulls up, looks at the guy, starts, I don't know what the hell he was telling him. He starts picking up, he's got gloves on, he starts picking up all the meat, just throws it in the back of his truck, grabs the guy. He's like, "Oh, dude, you cannot." And you know, China outlawed any exotic food now. It's been outlawed for about 3 months now. You can't eat bats anymore. You can't eat cats or dogs anymore. All that shit's been outlawed. Well, the Chinese people were different. I mean, they were raised different. You know, they came from a poor country where everything is food. Yeah. You know, eat a starve.
Well, that's what was passed there, and I watched the whole thing on there about the wet markets and the whole sustainability of it, where they allowed everything to be sold there, and that's where this big thing goes on there about what really happened there, where this disease came from. Like, there's speculation it came from bats, came from food, and there's speculation there, but they still haven't found patient 0, period. So that's how did it there's no transference from animal to human. They don't have that.
The doctor said what they think, if you don't consider it a made drug, they said the only thing it could really be is because all the animals are stacked on top of each other and they're all shitting and pissing on each other. He said the piles at the bottom is probably where the disease started. Some human stepped in it or touched it or cleaned it up, and that's probably how it started. But they don't know that.
That's speculation.
They are finally saying, without a doubt, it came from Wuhan. But even that, there's not 100% sure because of what happened in Iran and in South Korea. So they're not. But South Korea's on a downside curve. People are getting better there. Even on Italy, they said today they're actually seeing less deaths every day now for the last 2 days. So
I can tell you right now.
It's the United States is growing, but the death rate's really not growing.
So I can tell you right now, I talked to my moderator today from Sardinia, and she said on Sardinia, they've only had one death, if I'm not mistaken. But where they all are, or in the north of Italy, she said they are crying and begging for nurses and doctors. They do not have enough people. And that's where the issues are. That's where people are dying. She said there's a lot more people that have died than they've reported. There's a lot more people with the disease.
I would believe that, but the World Health Organization went down 3 days ago and did a physical count.
Well, what I'm telling you is they're in their homes, she said. They're not in the hospitals. She said.
Well, yeah, people are going to be dying in their homes, but still, the Spanish people require by law that you register anybody who dies before they're buried. So the WHO went down was doing a count like that because that's what they said. They said the hospitals couldn't give them all death counts, so they went to the local, I don't know what they were calling them. I guess here it would be a coroner or something, but it wasn't even a coroner. It was like a bookkeeper, basically. And he said what they were doing is when someone died and was going to be buried or placed or whatever, that's the records they were using. He said because that way
you can't really believe everything you hear from the World Health Organization, though.
Yeah, we can't trust any of the people, but I mean, you got to give them credit because they actually went down there and were doing physical counts, which is not something they had to do, but they weren't convinced about Italy, Spain, or South Korea's actual counts. Yeah. So they went down and did it themselves, and when they did, the count went up. I want to say about 200 people, maybe 300 people.
Yeah.
Pushed them over 3,000. I know that. Yeah, it pushed them over 3,000 deaths, that's more than China's got right now. So, yeah. But then they told me today our city, New Orleans, is the fastest growing corona thing in the Washington State's 24 for every 100,000. New Orleans is 18 people for every 100,000. Colorado, it's eight people for every 100,000. Michigan, 7. We get to where I live in Mississippi. It's one person out of every 100,000. We've had one death and 40 or 50 cases so far.
So we just saw a video on New Orleans, and the guy was filming from Bourbon Street, and it's just like empty.
Yeah,
There's like only a couple.
It's empty.
It's like only a couple of stores that were open. Everything's boarded up.
Yeah, they're all supposed to be home. They're not supposed to be out. They're supposed to be doing their thing. They I think when they updated the cases today in Mississippi, they updated to like 140 and 3 deaths. Louisiana's over, I think it's over 1,200 cases now and quite a few deaths. Its death rate's pretty high. It's like 4.4 or 3.4, something like that. But corona itself, worldwide, the death rate now is only 0.5%. It's not even a full percent anymore. See, the problem is the news media has lied to themselves. Oh, you watch as we test and it's going to go through the roof. Yeah, well, it did. But they didn't realize how many more people were not going to have it than had it. Mm-hmm. That's where they messed up with their counts because you have to take in everybody. And when you start talking 300 million people or in the Americas 1.5 billion or almost 2 billion people now, out of that, I think they said less than 25,000 people have it. And out of that, less than 1,000 have died. So it's when you start doing the math, it's not near because the president was on TV today talking about how many people died from the flu. They're estimating in the United States 50,000 people are going to die from influenza. And so far only 500 dead in the United States from the coronavirus. I mean, it's not even a fucking ballpark.
Yeah, well, that's a problem too with reporting these deaths, though, is that there is no assurity to was it corona involved deaths or was it not? Like there's deaths that happen every day and you can't add those numbers into the COVID-19 death count either. So that none of this stuff has been determined yet, and these death toll numbers are all over the place. This is crazy.
Well, you've seen what they did with the 21-year-old kid. They said he died from corona, and the doctor said no, he died from leukemia. And come to find out, pretty much everybody who's died, even the World Organization agreed with this. 99.9% of everyone who's died has had some other health issue.
Right.
Yeah, like
it's not even just age anymore. It's age plus.
Yeah, it was the guy whose name was released here in Southern Ontario. He had chronic leukemia, which means he wasn't desperately ill, but his immune system's affected. He died. I know they released his name. He was 50 or 51. That was the most.
And some young people are getting sick, but this one girl kept saying she was the picture of health, and then she got sick, and the doctor said that's not true. He said everyone who's a picture of health isn't getting this disease. He said people who just aren't getting it. And he said even if they're a carrier, they're not getting sick from it. He said this disease preys on people. He said the lower your immune system, the more likely it's going to kill you.
Right.
And that's all they're trying to get across to people now. And one of the big wigs from the World Health Organization said we should just let it run its course. He said trying to contain it and stop it at this point is ridiculous. He said let it run through the planet just like we do any other flu, and deal whatever the tolls come out to be. Because he said he didn't think it would kill as many people as the flu's killing.
Yeah.
He said even worldwide, he said there's just not that many. He said you're not going to kill 1 million because the flu's supposed to kill 600 to 800,000 people this year worldwide. So he said he's doubt corona would kill 1 million people. He said I just don't see that happening. He said none of the evidence we see suggests that. And it's just not enough people.
There's got to be another agenda then to why this is happening, going to these crazy.
Well, originally it was probably happened because China wanted to thin its population. And originally we all thought, they're just thinning their old population. No, they're thinning their sick population. The population that actually drains. Because old people, when they're productive, nobody wants to get rid of them because they're useful, just like anybody else in the world. But China has about 400 million people that have health issues and problems that are draining China's thing. And if they could get rid of them, it would drop their population below 1 billion, and they would get all that strain off their health system.
Plus, they had a lot of people in internment camps up in the northern province. There are a bunch of Muslims there that they have.
What do they call them? Re-education camps or some shit. They had some name for them the other day. I was laughing when I heard them.
Yeah,
I was like, re-education camp. What the fuck is that? Yeah, learn not to be Muslim is what that is. Boy, they.
I heard about that. They're fighting over that strip of land that apparently is extremely fertile. There was somebody that leaked a news article out of there. People, you're exactly what you guys are talking about. Learning how to unlearn how to be Muslim. That's what's happening.
That's what they're doing. They want to cartel the Muslim population, and then the Muslims, the Christians, and the Jews got together, which was amazing to start off with. And came out anti-gay like you wouldn't believe. The Pope said there's only 2 sexes. If you think there's any more than 2 sexes, you're going to probably burn in hell. He said that's all there is. He said we're not saying that people can't choose to be something else and it's their right. We're not saying that they should be killed for doing it. He said, but in the end, there is only 2 sexes. He said whether you want to believe God created you or Mother Nature created you, they still only created male and female. He said none of this other shit is a creation, it's a choice. And unfortunately for the world who wants to say it's not a choice, psychology says it is a choice. They said somewhere you got to make a choice. You people, gays tried to use that we're born gay, but come to find out that's not how it works. You can be born with a disposition for it, but you're not actually born gay. And like they said, anytime your kid's having sexual problems under the age of puberty, that's on the parents. I was like, wow, okay. I don't know enough about it to be saying it's on the parents.
Well, I do, and I'm not going to go there because I have a son that's gay, and I've known.
I got a nephew that's gay. I got a cousin that's gay. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I don't know how you would do that. I mean, of course, my nephew's a billionaire and he's gay, so that probably actually helps. Him and his husband, boyfriend, or whatever the fuck he is. They own a law firm out of New Orleans, and they are legitimately a billionaire. So they've got money like you wouldn't believe. And but it was different for me because, like for you, you have a gay child, so it was different for me. I grew up in New Orleans, which has a large gay population. I had at least 3 family members that were gay, and friends, that were gay. So we met them, talked to them. It's just part of life down here, but it's not the majority of our country. And the majority
that's the thing.
It's still not.
Well, that's the thing, is that they went from there was lesbian and gay, right? So the male and female, and then where the problem, or the issue, I guess, came into is when they started going that there is no gender. That's where these new kids have gone there. This genderless thing, pansexual, gender sexual,
yeah.
AIT, transsexual, all this stuff. And then he says that you're not born male or female. That's the big issue. And in Canada, they've pushed this now, is that you cannot say, you have to, if you misgender somebody, you get fined or lose your job, which is ridiculous when there's only biologically, there is only male and female, that you're not born a chimera.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I don't know how, this is one of these subjects that's going to take the world a long time to catch up with. And, like I told a friend of mine the other day, because he jumped all over me for defending this gay guy. And he said, Joe, he said, I don't care what America says or Canada says or Europe says. He said, there's close to 8 billion people on this planet, and 7 billion of them are anti-gay. He said, do you know there's still 100 countries where you can be put to death and 50 where you can be in prison for life? Yep. He said there's only 50 countries that even address gay, and even in those 50, not one of them has all rights for gays. He said there's still issues in every country. See, I didn't know Canada's like the United States. As you go from state to state here, it's different in each state. I didn't know Canada was the same way. It's different from province to province of what the law says. So, as long as that's going on, you're never going to get anything straight. And then you can't go around telling the rest of the world that you're right and they're wrong.
Exactly.
I don't know who's right and who's wrong. And I agree with what the Pope said. In the end, he came out with a hardcore thing, but he said from day one, it's not my job to judge gay people. They'll do that when they stand in front of pearly gates. He said, that is my job. He said, my job is to let people know that there are two sexes, but there are other choices in the world.
Yep.
So at least he admitted the fact that there are other choices,